So we've got our tray to make sure that it's centered. Yeah, so there's the center of the tray. There. We're going to create our character. So let's start by creating an empty game object. I'm going to call this one Buster. That's his name. Yeah. GhostBuster. Okay. And I'm going to reset his position to be in the center of the screen. Just look at this tray. Okay. All right. Wasn't expecting to turn up there, but still. Right, we can't see much of Buster there, but he's there. Now, this is going to be a first-person shooter game. So what you see in a first-person shooter is just, of course, the gun and the arms holding it. In fact, in most first-person shooters, that's all there is, including here. So we've got here a gun. So I'm going to add that to Buster. Right, so if we just go in a little bit here. Okay, I'm going to go into the. There we go. Now, as you can see, he's actually in the floor at the moment, so I'm going to raise Buster, not the gun, up. So Buster is now resting on the floor. We've got to raise the position of the gun up. So I'm just selecting the gun now and move it up. Right, now one of the things you'll notice is that Buster is actually looking backwards, because that's the local forward direction. He's going backwards. So I'm going to rotate the gun around the y-axis. So halfway around, 180 degrees. Okay, so now the gun is looking straight forwards. Excellent, good. Now Buster is going to be a real character, so he's going to have weight. So we'll need to add a component there in the physics, not physics 2D this time, but we're going to have a rigid body. Right, so this is in the real world, so we can give him real sort of values. So let's make him say 200 kilograms. Right. We might want to change the drag as well, but we'll see that later on. The other thing is we need to give him a body, so he won't walk through walls and stuff. So we need to add a collider from the physics. I'm going to do a simple box collider. Right, so now I'll edit its position. So this is going to be his body. So it's going to be back there. So it's an imaginary body, of course. Right. That something is just the directional light. Don't worry about it. The other thing is we don't want his gun to be out of that collider. So I'm going to add another collider. And they work together. To another box collider. And I'm going to make this cover the gun. I'll also make it down to the ground level as well. Okay, so if we look at that from the rear, okay, perhaps that needs to come out a bit to cover his elbow. Not that that's really important. Right, now the other thing from a first first-person shooter perspective is the camera. The main camera is the eye, and the main camera is, where is it? Somewhere else. There. Okay, so we've got to put that main camera over Buster's, where Buster's eyes would be. So I'm going to bring it down and make it a child of Buster. So there we go, add it to Buster. And now the camera becomes a child of the player. Right, but it still hasn't changed its position, so I'm going to reset the camera, and we can see a shadow there. Okay, let's hover into Buster, and now you can see the camera is down there, so we'll raise it up. Right, there's his arms, bring it back a bit, and up a bit. Yeah. And I'll rotate that bit so it's looking down and in global space. The back. I think I'll just rotate it slightly. So we're just looking down the barrel of the gun. Over rotated there. Okay, that's not too bad. Just move it forward a bit. Right, so there's our gun, and we're looking from Buster's point of view. Okay. Yeah, Unity comes with some useful tags, and I'm going to add a tag here for the player, because that's what he is, the player. Right, so the next thing we've got to do is make Buster move. Okay, so we've got Buster, and we're looking over his shoulder. We can see the gun pointing ahead of us. Right, to move him, we'll need a script. So let's go back to Assets and create a new folder. And this is for scripts. Okay. And inside there, we'll create a new C# script. And as Buster is the player, I'm going to call this player control. And that's, we need to add one more thing to Buster before I go into this. Center of mass. So we've got Buster is 220 kilograms, but somewhere along there we've got the center of mass. This is where the actual forces act on it. So we want to make sure that his center of mass is fairly low. Right, so I'm going to add another child object to Buster. So I'm going to create an empty child, and I'm going to call this center of mass, or COM. Okay. And I want this to be down here somewhere, so we can't actually see it. Let's put a little marker on for it. Let's look, a little red diamond shape there. And if we have a look at Buster, so we can see that that's about there. So I'm going to move a little bit forward and keep it low as possible, which could be underground. That's not at all a problem. Okay, we can now start to move Buster. So we've got this new script, player control. Let's open. Okay, so we've got player control here. I need a few public and private variables here. So the first public variable is going to be the movement. So Buster can move forwards, he can move backwards, and he can rotate left and right. Okay, shooting will come later on. So we need some public floats here, and I shall call it B speed and R speed. Okay, I'll give it some initial values. So we want him to move fairly fast, so I'm going to give him, say, 6. We can alter these if we wish. And rotation, again, we want him to be fairly reactive, so I'll give him 6 there as well. Right, the next thing we want to do is identify the rigid body component. So this is private, and it's a rigid body. I'm going to call this RB. And we also need to identify the center of mass of the rigid body. So that's going to be another public one because we've identified it. Game object, and I'm going to call this COM. Okay, so in the start we can identify these. So RB is a component, so we can say equals get component and rigid body. Oops. And we're going to set the center of mass, which is a vector 3. So we RB dot center of mass. Notice the spelling; it's American. K equals com, which is the center of mass we've defined. Transform dot position. Okay. Now I'm going to use a physics update there, fixed update. So put right. Now we're going to use the standard movement key. So it's going to be the up or down arrows to move forwards or backwards, or alternatively you can use W to move forwards and S to move back, and left and right to rotate left and right, or A and D if you wish to use those instead. And they're in the axes. So here I'm going to capture whatever the up and down axis is. So I'm going to call that movement. Get axis. So this is the vertical axis. Right. So remember that this is between -1 and 1. So if we're not pressing any of the keys, it should be 0. And remember there's an acceleration and a deceleration there. Okay. So I'm going to change the velocity of the rigid body. Okay. So remember that we've got a local direction. So this rigid body, it knows which direction it's facing in because it's recorded in the transform. So it knows which direction is forward. So all I need to say is put transform forward because it knows which way is forward. And then we're going to add the speed. And that was called B speed. Okay, so that should move him forward or backwards, because if you're pressing the down arrow or the D key, movement will be negative. So we're going to do a similar sort of thing for the rotation. So we're going to call this rod for rotation. And this is going to be the horizontal. Again, it'll be between -1 and 1. And we can just rotate the transform directly. So we've got a rotate function, which has several versions. The one we're going to use is using this is the direction we wanted to rotate around. So imagine we've got 3 axes. So imagine a sort of spit going straight through Buster from his head to his feet, a bit like a doner kebab, and he rotates around that, which is the y-axis. So we identify the y-axis by putting 0 on the x, 1 on the y, and 0 on the z. Okay, and we multiply that by whatever the rotation is, and multiply that by the r speed. And we're going to scale that down because otherwise it'd be spinning like a top, using time, delta time. Okay, so let's just check, see if that works. No errors, no warnings. Good, that sounds good. So I'll stop debugging and back to Unity. Right, so I just need to attach that code to Buster. Right, so let's have a look at the code. So we've got the B speed, the R speed. We've got no object identified there, so we need to associate that with this object that we've put in there. Right, let's save that and see if it works. I'm anticipating there might be a few problems, but we'll see. Okay, so Jesse seems to be moving and rotating. Let's maximize on play. Just check that out. Right, he's a bit slow on the rotation, I think. So I'll just increase the rotation speed. Maybe I'll put that to 15. Let's see if that's any better. Okay, yeah, that's not too bad. And he can do both, of course. And with any luck, if he arrives at the wall, he can't go through it.